All right, hump day. Welcome to Frontline, 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. We begin tonight with eyes on the Middle East, where tensions remain high between the U.S. and Iran, despite a meeting with Iran in Geneva yesterday. American officials are not optimistic that Iran is willing to meet American demands on their nuclear buildup. Also, Maryland Governor Wes Moore has signed a bill banning formal agreements with ICE in the state. The bill bans state and local agencies and even county sheriffs from entering agreements with federal immigration enforcement. And if any deals are currently in place in the state, they got to end by July. And more strikes on drug boats. The War Department taking out 3 more vessels in the Eastern Pacific and the Caribbean this week. Strikes killing all 11 people on board the ships, bringing the total number of drug traffickers killed to at least 135 since the campaign began in September. Not a great day for drug dealers. But first, Congress flies to Les Wexner's house to depose him on Epstein, and more emails show undermining President Trump from his inner circle. Let's do this. Got a doozy today. Everyone talking about the women who were trafficked and abused, which no doubt should be exposed, and you should march those people right into jail, off a cliff, or into a wood chipper foot first. But the part that so many people are still afraid to talk about is the underground network that is being alleged in these files and how it was funded. How did a math teacher, a junior associate at Bear Stearns, Jeffrey Epstein, somehow accumulate billions of dollars, a private jet, and an island, and all these women, international influence, and all this stuff? Well, instead of finishing the entire deposition today, Democrats took a break to run to the cameras to make sure one of the few Republicans, Les Wexner, was kept in the spotlight, probably because Hakeem Jeffries is begging for money from Jeffrey Epstein in these emails too, and they wanted to keep him out of the spotlight.
To be very clear, we know of approximately over $1 billion, it looks like. It's about $1 billion that was either transferred, provided in stocks, or given directly to Mr. Epstein by Wexner.
$1 billion is a lot of money. But money is not even the main concern that I have. It's influence, folks. Some of the wildest conspiracy theories reaching into international governments that we were told were absolutely insane theories are almost all mentioned in these files.
Do you still believe there's a vast right-wing conspiracy?
Don't you?
I've said repeatedly, no credible evidence supports this right-wing conspiracy theory.
Republicans have deployed conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory.
And most of them end up being right. I mean, look, from the emails, a 9/11 shadow commission? What was that? I'd like to know more. Specifically, how and why Building 7 collapsed at the World Trade Center. Former Israeli PM Ehud Barak, career counseling with Jeffrey Epstein, renewing more questions about the claims that the former Israeli intelligence officer, Iri Ben-Menashaw, that publicly claimed that Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, was in fact a long-term Mossad operative. Again, this is what's in the files. I haven't no information to confirm this against anything. I'm just reading from the files. We have an email titled, quote, photo from visiting meeting Bibi Netanyahu, dated around 2014, from an Epstein associate. But even in the newly batch of so unredacted batch, the attached photo is still redacted with no details on who it is, why it's redacted. We know it's not a victim. Was it Epstein himself? Why can't we find out? And beyond the known sexual abuse, new emails allude that there's crazy stuff. Eating children, hunting black people, and harvesting babies with what is now documented as an OBGYN on the payroll requesting his quarterly payments. You've got the Obama White House counsel, the woman vetting cabinet members and advising the President of the United States on ethics, was calling Epstein Uncle Jeffrey, getting lavish gifts, hanging out with the guy after he was a convicted sex offender. And something that I totally questioned from day one, COVID being a plan? Turns out, at least I've seen enough to believe I was right. But that was a conspiracy theory. Weird also that this guy, Bill Gates, who's so invested in vaccines, was also mentioned as being part of that plandemic, which then became the pandemic that tried to make everybody mandated to get a vaccine. Keep in mind, it was Bill Gates that has long been associated with claims that the world is overpopulated, renewing questions of why he would be involved in producing a vaccine to save the population. Wonder if it's a coincidence that we're now finding out that those mRNA vaccines are causing a whole pile of health defects. And since we're so widely administered, oh, look at that. Neat, but not really neat, because the life expectancy for the first time in modern history decreased upon the same year they administered those vaccines en masse. But something that really caught my eye was a few emails from a guy who's made his career about railing against the deep state and the system and the bad actors in it. Emails talking about trying to get integrated in some groups that had super shady intentions. And I'm talking about a guy that I used to call my friend, Steve Bannon. Folks, I told you that when the Epstein list came out, I would have zero loyalties to anyone that was doing or exposed for doing anything that appeared to be illegal, immoral, contrary to their public statements or anything. And here it is. Look, this is a part of the Epstein files that's gone overlooked. Beyond the pedos and all the other weird stuff, something that affects far more than just kids on an island, which is bad, but world order and circumventing literally our constitutional republic. And Bannon appears to have some really shady conversations with people who might be trying to do that. Look, I'll tell you folks, I was a Bannon defender early. I really liked the guy back in the day. I was a defender of his when he was in the first administration. So could have gotten it wrong, okay? But Steve Bannon exchanged thousands of emails with Epstein post-conviction. Why? And I want to be fair to him. Before I go any further, he did release a statement that said, quote, a spokesman for Bannon confirmed that his interactions with Epstein were an attempt to integrate himself with him for the documentary. Okay, then why are some of these emails about paying a complex network of hackers? Look, I'm just going to read some of this stuff verbatim. The following is presented without my opinion and reading directly from the emails. You can decide if this is about a documentary. In some of the exchanges between Bannon and Jeffrey Epstein, it makes my hair go up, okay? Let me just go through in an exchange, and I'm going to read these directly from this files that you see on your screen right there. Epstein wrote, "I'm wrestling with how you get these guys on your side. You want disruption? Wow, 20K strong. All they need is the China speech, as they're enamored with the size and naively don't recognize the ruse." Bannon wrote back, "Do you know these guys? Question mark. Epstein wrote, "Some of the founders and organizers, they are the most dangerous force in today's society by far," in caps. "Bioweapons pale due to blowback. Nuclear, 60-year-old technology. What other 60-year-old tech frightens you? Space frontier. Can't operate without software." Bannon wrote back, "This group most dangerous? Wow, you know these guys? Question mark. What was the 20K reference? Do you think I could get an invite to speak?" Epstein writes back, "There are 20,000 hackers showing up at the same place. They'll be sharing ideas on hacking crypto exchanges, voting booths, medical records, crypto wallets, denial of service attacks, competitions as to which team can break a secure code, a Jeopardy-style competition, breaking phones, networks, hacking self-driving cars and planes, etc." Bannon writes, "Get it." Epstein wrote back, whole litany of things, but he said hacks that can be bought and have never been used. The conference of hackers Bannon was trying to speak to were these guys, DEF CON. Why was he trying to meet and speak at an event with people who were hacking crypto wallets and phones and planes and, according to these emails, voting machines that we were told couldn't be hacked? I can't believe I'm about to quote these guys, but Ted Lieu, who I have zero things in common with, far left, ridiculous, out of his mind, partisan Ted Lieu, warned us this was a thing. But then, actually, according to his own website, he went to the same conference himself and then met with the same hackers, bragging about, according to these emails, being able to hack voting machines, with Eric Swalwell and Ron Wyden also there, who, when they went there, they bragged about being a part of this conference on their own website, saying that the reason they were there was to, quote, help secure our elections. That's their quote. And then they told us all throughout the next 4 years that our tech was secure, and it was the most secure election ever after bragging about meeting with the people who Jeffrey Epstein and Steve Bannon claimed could hack our elections. Their words, not mine. Make it make sense. But why was Bannon or any other officials in any other role meeting with people who, according to these emails, were doing or trying to do or possess the power to do all that? Let's look at some of the other stuff from these files, too, that even goes crazier than this stuff with Bannon. Why was he talking about replacing Trump, swapping Pompeo as the VP with Mike Pence, and then using the 25th Amendment to make Pompeo the president? These are text messages with what is assumed to be Epstein, confirmed to be with Bannon. Quote, I like the idea of Pence stepping down in favor of Pompeo, so when it happens, he becomes president. That's from allegedly Epstein. And I'm thinking, it? What do you mean by it? Bannon responding, that is his name, has this been shopped? Epstein replies, Rudy did lay out impeachment, Pelosi vote, and don't go after Ivanka. Bannon says, great. Great. Impeaching Trump? Well, I mean, we now know Pompeo was not a product of MAGA doctrine and was heavily critical of Trump once he left his first term, showing his true colors. And Bannon wanted him to become president? Am I reading that? There's a possibility that Bannon did nothing wrong and these are being misinterpreted. There's a possibility, giving him the benefit of the doubt here, considering he was, like, I defended this guy. I thought he was good for the administration initially. But there's some splaining to do about beyond talking about a documentary to revitalize Jeffrey Epstein's image. A lot of people have a lot of explaining to do, way beyond the island, way beyond sexual assault and all those, and rape and all those things. The more this stuff comes out, the more people keep getting caught in stuff that makes people like me question absolutely everything. Everything is now up for question. Mostly proving that Trump and all the conspiracy theorists, we were right about a ton of stuff. Keep in mind, first it was the redactions, okay? We couldn't get all the files. They were redacting them, and then they redacted Les Wexner. Now he's being deposed. Then, when they finally did release all the files, because there was such turmoil to get these things out, once they finally released all those things, they put them up on the government website in such a manner that makes it so difficult to search anything. Something, you have data that spreads out over thousands of pages, but you can only have 10 links per page, so you can only search 10 at a time, and there are hundreds of thousands of links to linking individual pages. It would take one person a lifetime to get through a fraction of it. It takes forever. But you know what? Thank God we got the internet and we got crowdsourcing. And I always tell people at home, you want to be a part of the solution, get on there and start looking this stuff up, because there's a ton of stuff out there. And if we as citizens don't force our government to be transparent, voting's a suggestion. And you know what's crazy, folks, is normally we come out of these monologues and we have a guest for you. We reached out to dozens and dozens and dozens of conservatives. And you know how many wanted to come on and talk about it with me? 0. Tells you we're hovering over the target. Coming up, Democrat policies are crushing businesses one exodus at a time. A tech titan with a whopping $300 billion just bolted from another blue state. Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick sounds off in just a bit. But first, 47 million Americans swallowing statin pills daily to block cholesterol. Isn't that the stuff that your brain is built on? Why? The reason might blow your mind. We're going to break it down next.
No way this all fits.
Watch me.
Oh, we're watching, Gary. They're right.
We need WeatherTech.
I thought they only make floor liners and cargo liners.
Really, Garrett? Really, Garrett? Who do you think made the seat protector, side window deflectors, no-drill mud flaps?
And the cup foam.
And I just ordered WeatherTech's newest products. Ta-da!
Hitch Basket makes for easy loading of heavy and bulky gear and increased storage capacity with a roof basket up top. Buy American at WT.com.
WeatherTech for the win.
Precise designs, subtle curves, curated upgrades, elevated design for thoughtful living. Thuma.
This isn't your average pill. This is Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks is a fast-acting solution because it dissolves under your tongue.
Rose Sparks.
Guys, get started today.
Connect with a provider to find out if Rose Sparks are right for you.
Every day across the globe, big business agendas go unseen by investors. Things that go against your core values and beliefs. It's time to know your investments. Abortion, alternative lifestyles, gender and identity confusion. If you believe in protecting marriage and life, children, innocence, guarding masculinity, restoring families, defending religious liberty, invest with your values. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Well, while we're pissing off the system, let's do Big Pharma. How many are you on statin drugs? Probably about, 47 million. Which is about 1 in 4 adults. What do statin drugs do? Well, they suppress cholesterol. But why would you want to suppress something that comprises almost 100% of your brain? Why do you also need to suppress something that your liver produces 24/7 for you? You can take this all with the way back to the 1960s with the Sugar Research Foundation that funded Harvard scientists to produce research that downplayed sugar's role in heart disease while shifting negative effects, allegedly, to saturated fat and cholesterol. And it turns out 99% of scientists just agree with who's ever funding them. And it was then published in the New England Journal of Medicine, so you know it's good. It was the basis for our old food pyramid until RFK came in. For like half a century, by the way. The potential single largest medical industry today became out of these statin drugs in those studies. Over $1 trillion to date. And it's been kept alive by the American Heart Association, which received $1.3 billion just last year from Pepsi and Coca-Cola and other big pharma for, quote, research that they then used to say soda's good for you. And as that industry became more and more profitable through subsidized healthcare, maybe you happen to notice that the number they told you was the safe cholesterol level recommendations starting back in the 60s started to decrease. Why? Oh, yes, so they could prescribe more statin drugs. Follow the money, folks. Specifically, when it really started to pick up in the early 2000s, when the National Cholesterol Education Program renewed concerns about cholesterol being bad for you, while simultaneously 8 of the 9 panel members were getting paid or compensated by statin companies? What? That can't. Yes, it is true. And remember, we showed you this a couple weeks ago.
Which of your companies own or control a health insurance division? Raise your hand. Keep your hand up if you also employ healthcare providers or own clinics, specialty pharmacies, or any other kind of medical practice or pharmacy. Please keep your hand up if you also own or control a pharmacy benefit manager. And please keep your hand up if you lead a publicly traded company at which you have a legal responsibility to maximize shareholder value.
They just said it. The people that own the insurance companies, that pay for the drug, oftentimes with government subsidies, also own the pharmacy benefit managers that control the price of that drug. And the same people also own the doctors' practices that prescribe the drug and even incentivize doctors that work for them to prescribe more statin drugs. And just today, though, the FDA is recalling 30,000 individual statin drugs due to what they're calling sub-potency issues, which means the trillion-dollar industry may have been watering down their medication to make more of it for cheaper. And you wonder why I question Big Pharma. Cardiologist, preventive medicine specialist, Dr. Arthur Agatston. Doc, I'm glad we got connected with you last minute. Our entire health basis for heart health has just been turned upside down by this new administration.
Yes, and most of your summary is absolutely excellent. There's been so much confusion about cholesterol and drugs. One day you avoid cholesterol, the other day the next says have a lot of it. I think some history is helpful. Mm-hmm. We really never had heart attacks in the 1800s when we were a big meat and dairy nation. And it wasn't until the 1900s, after the Industrial Revolution, when we started to have a lot more sugar, processed carbs, different types of cigarettes, blended tobacco, where you could actually inhale the tobacco. Mm-hmm. The tobacco in the 1800s, it was irritating if you inhaled it, and a few other things. So when the first actual report of a coronary thrombosis was in 1912, and nobody was particularly interested, but because they weren't seeing it in their practice. Mm-hmm. By the 1940s, heart disease was epidemic because it changed in the risk factors. And there was controversy because the first lipid or fat in the blood that we could test was total cholesterol. Mm-hmm. And we started to see a lot of heart attacks after World War I when all the food began to change. There was a fellow named Ansel Keys who his wife was a chemist. He went around measuring total cholesterol, and they were seeing cholesterol in vessel walls. But he said it's in the vessel's walls. It's in the blood in cholesterol, mm-hmm. and if you have fat, you increase the total cholesterol. But that was all true, but totally misleading.
Doc, I want to stop you right there real quick because you're making a ton of good points, and you are a renowned cardiologist. This is what you do. One of the things that doctors don't go through any nutritional classes almost at all in their entire medical residency or any of that stuff. I eat a dozen eggs a day. My doctor tells me every year, oh, this is going to be terrible for you, and my cholesterol is just fine. I eat 3 pounds of red meat a day, and my cholesterol is just fine. But they tell me, they can't show me on my blood work, but they tell me every year that I have to stop doing that or I'm going to have a heart attack.
Yeah, societies that eat more like that, the Maasai in Africa, Eskimos, Gauchos in South America, big meat and dairy diet, all the eggs you want, and no heart attacks or strokes until we had the processed white flour. And starting in the late 1900s, our sugar intake went up, and now with high fructose corn syrup, it's higher than ever. But Ansel Keys, who did the early studies, convinced everybody of the logic. Here's fat in the artery, here's fat in the blood that we're measuring with total cholesterol, and fat increases that. So there were other people beginning to do research, including in the late 50s and 60s, that found the opposite, mm-hmm. that it was carbs that raised triglycerides, which Ansel Keys didn't measure, and was raising blood sugars and causing diabetes. Yeah. And the societies did not listen, and it certainly had a lot to do with the economics and big pharma. So they made the food pyramid totally upside down.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the problem is what we classify as Alzheimer's and dementia, a lot of other countries classify as type 3 diabetes due to, in part, what you were saying, sugars. Doctor, we really appreciate your insight on this. Thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
All right, coming up, trouble in socialist paradise. Remember Mamdani's little plan to tax the rich? Well, Hochul shut that down, actually, if you can believe it. Now he wants to raise everybody's property taxes by almost 10% instead. Next.
Newsmax.
Shoots it straight. No talking down to me.
Don't tell me how to think.
Don't tell me how to think. Don't tell me how to think.
I trust Newsmax. Newsmax.
They don't tell me how to think. They let me decide.
Real news for real people.
You can join the Tunnel to Towers mission to do good by donating your car to today's veterans. Your car donation will help Gold Star families, as well as injured veterans, our first responders, and our homeless veterans. Donating your car is quick and simple. Any car is accepted, and we will pick up the car for free. Simply call 844-BRAVES.
By donating your car, you can make a real difference. You can do good.
All exposure to products that contain asbestos can be harmful. If you or a loved one has been diagnosed with mesothelioma, please call. Our firm has been exclusively dedicated to mesothelioma victims for decades. Let us meet you in your home, office, anywhere, and offer you our MesoCare promise. Our dedication to you is unmatched. Call now for our free book.
Call 800-801-8000 or go to mesobook.com.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and they're gonna love it.
Prices keep climbing. Groceries, gas, everything.
I know, even with a new administration, fixing policies, keeping the economy in line will take time.
I'm so glad we signed up for Noble Gold Investments Value Lock program.
We tied our savings to gold. It's an asset that keeps pace with inflation. When prices go up, so does gold.
So when we need our cash, the value's still there.
Secure your savings with Noble Gold's Value Lock. Call 877-646-5347 or visit noblegoldinvestments.com.
Hello, everyone. It's President Donald J. Trump, and it's Trump time. Check out this red beauty. It's one of my new watches. Wear it proudly on your wrist, and everyone will know exactly what it's for, who it represents. It's really going to be something special. It's for your favorite president. Get your watch today at gettrumpwatches.com. These make a great gift. It's Trump time.
You moved in. You nested.
Hey, what are you doing?
You partied. You cuddled. You made egg rolls. You slept in. Or tried to. And you kept growing. Now it's time for the next chapter. With Open Door, get an all-cash offer for your home in 24 hours. Because saying goodbye should be the hardest part. Move into your future with Open Door.
I still love to surf, snowboard, and of course skate. So I take Cunol Magnesium to support my muscle and bone health. Cunol's high absorption magnesium glycinate helps me get the full benefits of magnesium. Cunol, the brand I trust.
When curiosity strikes about the everyday lives of your family, we're here with answers only your ancestors can provide. See their stories at Ancestry.
Next person to dunk on, Democrats. Democrat Socialist New York Mayor Mamdani. Little plan to tax the rich. Well, New York Governor Kathy Hochul, of all people, actually shut that down. And now Mamdani's rolling out this backup plan saying that Hochul, you either let me raise taxes on the rich and corporations or I'm going to impose a 9.5% real estate tax on everybody. That's a property tax on everybody across New York. Listen to this.
With no other choice, the city would have to exercise the only revenue lever fully within our own control. We would have to raise property taxes. We would also be forced to raid our reserves. At the heart of this path is a property tax increase. This would effectively be a tax on working and middle-class New Yorkers who have a median income of $122,000. The second path also requires us to raid our reserves. It would mean withdrawing $980 million from our city's rainy day fund in fiscal year 2026.
I told told you. We tried to warn you. This is the same old story where socialists promise everything for free and then demand that we hardworking Americans pay the price. And math adds up and it makes sure that they can't do the things. But now also to further compensate for all the free stuff and bad management he wants to cancel 5,000 NYPD officer hires and cut the NYPD budget. Whoa. Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who will never let socialism into Texas. Sir, being in a state where you guys have largely succeeded on every economic metric, what do you think about this?
Well, first of all, this is why people, Carl, are moving from New York to other states, and Texas is one of those. We're going the opposite way. We just had a property tax cut that removed almost every senior 65 and over from ever paying school taxes again.
So money.
Because we gave them a $200,000 homestead exemption off the value of their home. So that means you don't have to pay tax on that. And we also cut the property tax by raising the exemption to $140,000 for everyone under 65. So we have done nothing but cut property taxes over the last several years. We still have a ways to go. We want to get rid of all school property taxes, and I think we'll be there for all citizens pretty soon. And how's this for an idea that maybe they would never think of? Right now, we freeze your home value at 65. I have a bill that will pass next session to reduce that age to 55, meaning your home values are frozen 10 years sooner, saving you thousands of dollars and eliminating school taxes for even more people. So the blue states are spending their reserves, they're raising taxes, and they're driving people out of their states. Mm-hmm. And as long as they vote Republican, we're happy to have them.
Exactly. Yeah, don't bring your crap policies to the good states after you destroyed your own, places like Colorado. This is great. Palantir, everybody knows Palantir, the massive tech company, okay? This is so interesting to me because they're taking their headquarters and they're moving to a state that's doing exactly what you're doing, Florida, because they were like, we don't like the policies of this anymore. What do you, who could have possibly seen that coming?
Well, I saw a quote or a comment by Abby Phillips over another network, who, like Mamdani. Look, these people are clueless about when it comes to economics or finance, just clueless. And they said, well, raising taxes, doesn't drive anyone to another state. Of course it does. And that's why Florida is one, but Texas is the leader. We've created more jobs than any other state in the last decade. We have more Fortune 500 companies coming here. We're opening up our own Texas Stock Exchange. I'm going to change Central Time to Texas Time. I think that's the way it ought to be. I don't think Chicago will like that. But the bottom line is everyone's coming to Texas because we're low tax. We don't have any income tax, low regulation. Mm-hmm. And guess what? We still love law enforcement. We still love God. We don't have any anarchists in the street like a blue state. We're the America in Texas that all America used to be. Mm-hmm. And we're going to fight for that. And we'll have a competitive election in November. We're going to have to work hard, as always. Can't take anything for granted. But, Carl, we have this kind of motto from another senator, Donna Campbell, who's a great senator, who once said, we have to get it right in Texas because there's not another Texas to move to. No. So we're going to get it right in Texas. And that's why they're all moving here. And it's what I find, Carl, by the way, when companies sometimes move 500 employees who really don't want to leave, maybe some of them bring their politics with them. But every person I've met, and I traveled the state all the time, every person I've met from California, from Illinois, from New York, from other blue states, they're refugees. They're fleeing those states because they're Republicans who feel they don't have a voice. Many of them are retired folks, and many of them are business owners, but they're coming here for jobs, to start a business, and to live the Texas dream. Remember, America is not a strong country unless Texas is strong, and we're not strong unless we're conservative.
And look, this is why I'm coming to Texas next month to go hunting. This is why I spend time in Texas. If I was not bound by my children to New England and this job in Manhattan, I would also be in Texas, sir. So, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, we appreciate it.
Let me know when you're here. Let me know when you're in Texas.
Oh, I certainly will, sir.
All right.
All right, coming up. Liberals, as the Texas Lieutenant Governor just said, live in la-la land, twisted reality in order to keep their delusions going. Their latest lie, accusing an ICE agent of killing a black teacher when it was actually an illegal alien that ran into it. Make it make sense. Anyway, in our Culture Clash next.
Everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmidt tonight on Newsmax.
Total Beets, America's best-selling Beets brand, is available at Walmart. Total Beets blood pressure support soft chews contain a key ingredient clinically shown to deliver 2 times better blood pressure support. Take control of your health. Head to Walmart and get Total Beets blood pressure support soft chews today.
People always ask, why Patriot Gold Group? With over 10,000 clients to date and over $1 billion in transactions, not a single complaint on the Better Business Bureau. Consumer Affairs top rated for 9 years in a row. Over 2,000 5-star reviews. The only company nationwide where you, the client, work directly with an owner. Home of the no fee for life IRA. Gold is up 80% in the last 28 months, 275% since Lehman Brothers collapsed. We are patriots protecting patriots. Give Patriot Gold Group a call at 888-528-4290 before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer 9 years in a row. Call now, 888-528-4290.
Are you worried the IRS might come after you? It's not just a money issue, it's a life issue. Back taxes can wreck finances, destroy credit, and leave you stuck in constant stress. Dr. Phil here, and I've got news for you. Millions of Americans are behind on taxes, and many settle for far less than they owe. If you owe more than $10,000 or have unfiled returns, Protection Tax can help. Stop fighting alone. Their tax experts and licensed professionals deal with the IRS so you don't have to. They can settle personal or business-backed taxes no matter how serious your issue is. They've saved their clients millions. If you're overwhelmed, don't wait. Now is the time to take action. Call Protection Tax for a free confidential consultation. Take the first step and take your life back.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year your loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
President Trump wants to bring back mental asylums, and I couldn't be more on board. Come spend a weekend in New York City and take the subways, and you will get it. Let me show you where I'm going with this. In 1955, 165 million people lived in the United States. Compared to today, over 342 million people live here. Now, the U.S. mental asylum population in 1955, with 160 million people, was almost 560,000 compared to the population in 1955. That's 1 in every 295 people were institutionalized. But if you look at today's numbers, 77,000 current inpatient clients in psychiatric hospitals. That's about 1 in every 4,453. So you're going to stand there, owning a fireworks stand, and tell me that America's population doubles and we still have over a 90% reduction in asylum people? Sure. Or are they just out on the street being transgender, pooping on the sidewalks? Independent journalist Evita Duffy-Alfonso and senior research analyst for the Media Research Center, Bill D'Agostino. Well, Evita, I mean, I seem to see 15, 20 crazy people every single day in Manhattan.
Oh, well, I lived in Chicago and I saw the same thing. I mean, it's a huge problem. And the problem is asylums, they get a bad rap, right? How many Halloween haunted houses have you seen that were themed around asylums? Asylums aren't necessarily abusive. There have been abuses in the past, but long-term inpatient care for the severely mentally ill is actually at face value a very good thing.
Mhm.
What is actually inhumane is to let these people who are severely mentally ill languish on the streets, to die on the streets, to then
Or
be
kill
involved
other people.
Exactly, that as well. I mean, these are people who are recycled through our jails and through the streets and emergency rooms. It's a huge problem, and inpatient long-term care is actually good and humane for the
Yeah.
severely mentally ill.
Yeah, but Bill, I'll give you another example of why mental asylums should be brought back. In a now deleted post, some liberal said that, quote, ICE murdered a black woman in Georgia today and no one is talking about it. We need to talk about it. Say her name, end quote. Now, Rapid Response called them out, writing, quote, this is a lie. She was murdered by an illegal alien driving without a valid driver's license who ran a red light. Dude, another example of delusional liberal who changes the reality to fit their narrative.
Right. And so, okay, the angle here that they're going to use is because ICE was pursuing this person and therefore ICE had any involvement whatsoever, it's ICE's fault. That's basically the standard that they've drawn now. Because they do this tortured logic where it's, okay, well, if ICE hadn't been there, if they hadn't been chasing this person, then they wouldn't have run a red light and killed somebody. But if you want to go back a little further in the decision tree, you could also say, if this person hadn't been here because they were let in probably under Biden, although who knows, but playing the odds here, probably under Biden, then they wouldn't have been here to hurt anybody to begin with. Mm-hmm. And this is the angle that the left always skips on purpose about crime by illegal aliens, is every single one, every crime committed by an illegal alien is by definition preventable if they hadn't been let in to begin with. When people talk about, oh, the crime rate is actually lower than this population or that population, it should be zero. There should be zero crimes by illegal aliens. The whole point of ICE is to eventually work towards that goal, right? But of course, because one of them got trigger happy with the wheel, I guess, and hit somebody, now this is ICE's fault. Yeah. And thoughts and prayers for that individual, by the way.
Well, exactly. I don't care what color her skin or political affiliation. An American person was killed by an illegal immigrant.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. All right. So, Evita, look, I don't really watch the Olympics. I've gone, that ship has sailed for me. But this sweet justice deserves attention. A few days ago, this American figure skater named Amber Glenn, never heard of her before this, but launched a rant about Trump and the transgender, saying, quote, it's been a hard time for the LGBT community overall in this administration, which it hasn't been. But she was a three-time reigning champ and was expected to at least win a medal. She flopped, got 13th place. So I'm thinking to myself, maybe she should focus on doing what she came there for rather than political bashing of the Trump administration.
I don't know why we don't start vetting these Olympians before they actually start to represent us overseas for their patriotism. My friend at the Federalist, Sean Davis, he wrote this Sean Fleetwood, he wrote this great article. He said the patriotic thing to do is actually to root against these unpatriotic Olympians because they're going out bashing us. Why should we cheer for them? Why should we want them to win? It's absurd. And by the way, she's coming after America, calling us bigoted, insinuating the Trump administration is bigoted, whatever it is. Listen, I'm going to tell you what, the people who are under threat in our country, it's not queer individuals, it's not trans people, it is little girls and women who are having their private spaces invaded by men. Yes. It is the wrestler who last week was assaulted by a male on the mat. This is what we're dealing with. These are the people who are under threat, and I'm sick of pretending otherwise.
Bill, last 15 seconds to you on American athletes. Maybe they should represent America overseas?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a permanent thing with Winter Olympians, I think. For whatever reason, this is just the liberal kids club. I think some of it probably has to do with the wealthy liberal communities where a lot of winter sports are played, but I don't know. It's exhausting. I'm with you. I don't watch this garbage.
At least USA Hockey is taking names. We'll take it.
Yes.
Evita, Bill, we appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, as sewage and poop pours into the Potomac ahead of the D.C. water seems more focused on DEI initiatives than being able to actually use that water. Next.
When it comes to my daily heart health supplement, I've got 3 rules. It's got to be plant-based, it's got to be doctor recommended, And it's got to be Super Beets from Human.
Super Beets is the #1 cardiologist recommended beet brand for heart health support with clinically studied grapeseed extract for nearly 2 times more effective blood pressure support than diet and exercise alone.
Super Beets works. I swear by it. And I know you're going to love it too.
Try Super Beets today at human.com.
You're careful about what you bring home when shopping, especially when it comes to feeding your family. Shouldn't your investments work the same way? At Timothy Plan, we offer a wide selection of mutual funds and ETFs that can help you allocate assets without compromising your values. From technology to healthcare, energy to real estate, our funds are not only diverse but uncompromising to your values. Timothy Plan funds are filtered to avoid companies involved in abortion, pornography, human trafficking, and other harmful agendas. What you invest in should reflect what you stand for. Are your investments bearing good fruit? What's in your portfolio? Contact your financial advisor today to find out, or contact Timothy Plan directly at 1-800-TIM-PLAN to discover more. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Power of disease.
Ticks and fleas.
Intestinal worms.
15 million dogs and counting know Simparica Trio offers triple protection against heartworm disease, ticks and fleas, and intestinal worms, all with 1 monthly chew. This drug class has been associated with neurologic side effects, including seizures. Use with caution in dogs with or without a history of these disorders. Don't just protect, triple protect.
Whoa, 90% off? I have to purchase now. My phone!
That was a scam link.
Try this one. We installed PC-Matic.
PC-Matic blocks ransomware before threats can strike.
It's 100% made in America security.
Trusted by homes, businesses, governments, and now you. Stop guessing.
Start blocking.
Get PC-Matic.
When we became parents, everything changed, especially our perspective on food.
On our path to find healthier products, we started Good Ranchers.
To connect families with 100% American-born, raised, and harvested meats.
Quality beef, pork, chicken, and wild-caught seafood delivered to your door.
Because we want the best for our family and yours when gathering at the dinner table. Visit GoodRanchers.com and discover American meat delivered.
Guys, we were on this story like before everybody when it first happened, but we didn't know how bad it would get. A sewer line rupturing in Montgomery County, Maryland, leading to the spillage of more than 200 million gallons of raw sewage into the Potomac River. E. coli levels are biblical. We're talking like Mumbai rates, 100 times higher than the EPA considers safe. Okay, this is only the latest ecological failure in which the government has been completely derelict. You had Flint, Michigan, aging pipes and lead in the drinking water. You had 2008 in the Tennessee Valley. That coal ash impounding dam completely failed. 5.4 million cubic yards of toxic sludge into the Emory River. And what about 2015 when the EPA contractors accidentally triggered the release of 3 million gallons of toxic mustard-colored wastewater from an abandoned mine near Silverton, Colorado. Sure, there were some payouts to locals from the governments, and the affected parties got kind of made whole, but they pale in comparison to the payouts when a private company causes a disaster of similar scale, like BP over the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. BP paid out $65 billion in fines and settlements and et cetera. DuPont had to pay out more than $670 million. When you adjust that for inflation, it's more than double that now, over $1 billion, for the chemical used in Teflon production when they contaminated their water in the great movie Dark Waters. Norfolk Southern agreed to pay $310 million settlement with the federal government after the East Palestine disaster. Then on top of that, reached another $600 million settlement from the people and the businesses impacted by that train that derailed on the tracks that was, supposed to be maintained by the government. So who's going to pay for the poo in the Potomac? Steve Milloy, founder of DrunkScience.com, and Marc Morano is founder of ClimateDepot.com. All right, Marc, It's just like when government screws something, it's it's sorry. Here's some of your own tax dollars. Go away, and you have no recourse. But when a private company does it, it's the end of the world.
Yes, and that's the way it's going to probably continue to be that way. In terms of who pays, this is going to come down to the, even Fairfax County, Virginia, Loudoun County, Virginia, the counties who get the money, D.C., it's going to end up coming down to the water ratepayers. This was not in the budget to have hundreds of millions of gallons of raw sewage flow into that. And the Trump administration, to its credit, you mentioned East Palestine, the Biden administration could be nowhere to be found. Pete Buttigieg, outside, the EPA, no one wanted, and Pete Buttigieg wanted nothing to do with that. And at least the Trump administration stepping in early here and trying to coordinate and take over for the disaster that they're seeing from both D.C. and Maryland in their response thus far.
Well, Steve, what's interesting? I want to listen to the people who are in charge that Trump is now removing from charge. The CEO, General Manager David Gaddis, talking about his priorities when he took over that department. Roll this.
Prior to DC Water, this was an organization that looked very similar to our industry. It was predominantly, white male at the top, but this is a utility that's, more than 70% people of color work at this utility. People at the top, the executives, the chiefs in that C-suite, they should look like the employees that they serve and that they work with. And the same thing with the community.
Who gives a flying what color the person is maintaining the pipes, because now you've got broken pipes with poop going into the rivers everywhere.
Well, Carl, Virginia's a Democrat state, Maryland's a Democrat state, and D.C. is run by Democrats. This is a Democrat problem. The larger problem here is that, over the last 20 years, we've spent trillions of dollars building windmills, solar panels, electric batteries, all kinds of green nonsense. And we have neglected our infrastructure. This problem in the Potomac, this is ready to erupt across the country. We have crumbling infrastructure, and we are completely distracted.
Yeah, no, it is. Marc, I am one of these guys, get off the grid, get your own well, do a septic system, do a hydroelectric dam, because hopefully the water near you doesn't have poop flowing through it. But this guy has overseen more than $500 million in DEI contracts, not to mention he was associated with the Flint, Michigan lead pipe thing, too. How did he end up here?
They always fail upwards in this kind of a system. And this is exactly what we saw in Gavin Newsom's California with Los Angeles during the wildfires, the fire department. It was all just woke DEI nonsense. They never prioritized competence. They never prioritized a plan. They never prioritized a focus. And this is, as Steve pointed out, this truly is climate change hijacking real environmental issues in America today. They've just taken their eye off the ball.
Steve, I got 30 seconds left here. How do you fix this problem? There's so much incompetence and so far behind maintenance.
We need to bring accountability to the system. That black plume of smoke you saw at East Palestine, EPA's fault. The Animas River turning yellow, EPA's fault. Flint, Michigan, EPA's fault. There's no accountability. Nobody gets fired for any of this. We need to start firing people.
Yeah, well, actually, that's probably the best thing I've heard all day. It's tough to do, but you know what? Lee Zeldin's actually been doing a pretty good job, at least at the deregulation part. Steve, Marc, we appreciate it.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
Before we go, the most motley crew ever. Kid Rock, RFK Jr., jeans, rock music, a workout? Count me in. Next.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. That decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
Let's face it, folks. Car repair costs are not going down anytime soon. In fact, they're only getting worse. Protect your hard-earned dollars with a money-saving plan for your out-of-warranty vehicle with one call to CarShield. Plans offer protections on big items like your car's transmission, engine, AC, and thousands of parts and systems. Call now. Waiting could cost you thousands.
Call CarShield now for your free quote and to lock in your rate with their price lock guarantee. Call 800-213-0458.
Nobody knows Corvettes like McMulkin Chevrolet, the world's largest Corvette dealer for 5 consecutive years. Set apart by its name alone, Corvette delivers a legacy of American craftsmanship, and a vehicle that sets the bar for performance cars deserves a buying experience that beats it. With hundreds of Corvettes in stock and ready for immediate delivery nationwide, it's no wonder Corvette enthusiasts from across the USA keep coming back to McMulkin Chevrolet.
Hi, I'm Gary Player. I'm a professional golfer. I've won 165 pro tournaments, but what means more to me than all of this is my ability to give back and do good.
You're an incredible human being, but you joined the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. You see the work we're doing.
I mean, what you do is fantastic. Tunnel to Towers is working every day to support America's greatest heroes. Please donate $11 a month at t2t.org.
Your Florida life is calling, and we have the answer. Valencia in Florida by GL Homes. Premium 55-plus living in 5 prime Florida locations. Gorgeous new homes from the mid-300s to $2.5 million. World-class resort-style living 24/7. Huge clubhouses, on-site dining, pickleball, and more. Effortless, low-maintenance living. Valencia, your Florida life is calling. Experience more at valenciaflorida.com.
Total Beats, America's best-selling Beats brand, is available at Walmart. Total Beats blood pressure support soft chews contain a key ingredient clinically shown to deliver 2 times better blood pressure support. Take control of your health. Head to Walmart and get Total Beats blood pressure support soft chews today.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dry premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and they're gonna love it.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
This is what Americans really need. A workout video with RFK Jr. and Kid Rock. Check this out. I mean, that dude's like 70-something years old. That's our Health and Human Services Secretary. Finally, someone healthy in that role, not like a trans Rachel Levine, partnered with Kid Rock to deliver 2 simple messages to the American people. Get active and eat real food, which we kind of talked to you a little bit earlier. Look, I have 2 things to say about this. Absolutely on board. Encourage more of this. RFK, he has this, he's always in jeans. Have you ever noticed that? He's always in jeans. He's getting in like a cold plunge in the sauna and all this stuff. But you know what? Good for him. America has kind of lost sight of being fit. You remember we had the Presidential Fitness Challenge. You used to take pride in that stuff. And now everybody, like 50% of our country is obese, Rob.
We got to crowdfund some swim trunks for RFK, I think. But yeah, I agree. I love this video. I can't believe how this man is. He's 70 years old.
Over 70.
I never looked that good at any point in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 70 years old. He's jacked.
Good for him, man.
Unbelievable.
Good for him. That great model.
Yeah, unbelievable stuff. And yeah, eat real food, lift weights. Simplistic. Get back to it.
Win wars.
Love it. Yeah, win wars. Carl, thanks. Good to see you.